Thank you. Good morning, everyone. How are you? Everyone ready for that first session of the second day? You know, when Cali used to be 3 days long, you didn't get this drop off until the third day. Now that it's 2 days, it happens a lot quicker. My name is Tom Ryan. I'm the Director of Information Technology for Rutgers University in Camden, New Jersey. I was telling my presenters that are going after me that I originally was the head of IT for the law school. We now have a unified IT for our campus at the university. And it's a great team. I'm really fortunate to work with a bunch of great people. And before I start, I want to say that a lot of what you're going to see here, part of that is possible because of the wonderful team that I have and their ability to help build these beautiful things on a budget. That being said, and I hope my French teacher from high school is not watching, I was reminded of this quote from this person, Jean-Baptiste Alphonse Carr, who was a French critic, journalist, and novelist. I'm not sure if any of you know French, but the quote was, and please apologize, I'm going to apologize in advance for my wonderful French pronunciation, but basically, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. Does anybody know what that means? Right? It's actually a really, really relevant thing, and John Mayer talked a little bit about it in his predictions. It means the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? And so when we talk about classroom design, I've been doing this for 30 years now, right? And it is still basically a computer and a projector in a classroom, right? Now, sometimes and trying to be more brief, I only have 30 slides, so I don't have the slide where I show that. Now, basically, you might say that's a computer and a screen of some sort, right? Like it could be a TV screen. A lot of people have moved to TVs. They're brighter, a little bit cheaper, easier to maintain. But essentially, really, it's a computer and a projector. I know when I look back and look at how law professors are teaching, I still have some that teach fully by Socratic method and don't use any technology in the classroom, right? I'm sure if you think about where you're at, you probably have professors who still do not use a computer. And then you've got everyone else, they're using PowerPoints. I always laugh because I remember this one professor years ago who told me how proud they were that they had started using WordPerfect for presenting on this. Yes, for real. They used WordPerfect. They would bring up their WordPerfect documents in 14-point font and show it on the screen. I was like, that's not a good idea. And mind you, this was back before there was instructional design and technology teams, right? Because probably all of us now probably have some sort of group that does that instructional design and technology, right? And so from a classroom perspective, you want to make sure that you can support them and make that technology available. But really, in the end, it's still a computer and a projector, right? It really is. Let's just be honest and call it for what it is. But how do you get to that enhanced classroom of the future? How do you take the technologies and extend them? What are those building blocks that are going to help you build a really enhanced classroom, for all intents and purposes, that is done in a way that's maybe not as expensive as we'd all like to spend? I want to give you some context there. I started in law school. We had less than 10 classrooms, right? That were law school classrooms. How many of you have less than 10 classrooms that you're worried about, right? Okay, now let me ask this other question. Remove seminar rooms from that question. How many have less than 10 classrooms, right? Yes, right. Obviously, we have a lot of seminar rooms. We count that up. I told you before, I work for Rutgers University Camden. I have over 100 classrooms that I maintain, right? Not including seminar rooms, not including conference rooms, not including group study rooms, everything else. All combined, we're getting close to 200. And one thing that's really cool is, and for your scale, it might not matter, the technology I'm going to show you today is in every single one of them. It is universal. We did it in every room. So you don't have to worry about planning. You don't have to worry about scheduling. You don't have to worry about bringing in that person or anything else. The technology is the same everywhere. So what are those building blocks on a budget? I splurged a little bit here. We have an Extron control panel. Extron, Crestron, everything else is the same type of system. Why do I have this? Now, this is a fancy one. I'm going to be honest. We don't have this from a percentage perspective. We have these a lot in the law school. The law school likes to be fancy. We understand that the law school likes to be fancy. So we give them a little bit fancier stuff that costs a little bit more. Most of our rooms have simple push buttons because remember, it's a computer and a projector. I really don't need any of this for what's being done in the law school classrooms, right? I need a volume control and I need like on off, right? Let's be honest, right? That's what I really need. That's what you really need if you're being honest with yourselves. You don't need this. It's nice, it's fancy, but it's not needed. And I'll talk a little bit about ways you can bring it down. But let's talk about some of the benefits of this type of system versus just using a remote in a classroom. Because some people, especially in their conference rooms, they might just have a remote turn on and off that TV. Extron gives you something called GVE, Global Viewer Enterprise. I'm sure Crestron has something similar. Other products have something similar. But the really nice thing about this is it gives you the ability to get detailed stats and usage data, which is always really important when you're trying to think about your classroom. At what building blocks do you need for the future? You need to understand how the room is used, right? Because even though it's just a computer and a projector, you need to understand things about it. The other nice thing is when you have 100 of these rooms, you want to be able to provide support to all of them. And how do you provide support to all of them? Well, one really nice thing is there's a remote control where you can see, right? Extron makes it so you can see the physical you can see a virtual presentation of the physical device that's in that space, right? So you can, your help desk person, your student worker, whoever can log in and see that room. Now, we also have cameras in every room, so that the help desk worker can see the room live while controlling the equipment, while controlling the classroom computer that's in the space. So that's pretty nice things. The other thing it told us, which was really, really nice and really, really powerful information to have, is that what was the usage of our classrooms? And I was just mentioning to someone else and said, what we realized is we spent all this money on document cameras and nobody used them. Nobody used them at all. Like, wow, we just bought these document cameras. We bought really nice ones. We had, like, you see this one here, it's got this like portable thing that comes up and down. We put cameras in the ceiling, so there was like no obstruction on the table, and you could just place your thing here, and the camera was really good. It could zoom in, it could show you all that. We spent all that money for that tech. It wasn't being used at all, right? And when I say at all, no, it wasn't zero, but it was so little that we could buy a $99 portable document camera that we could tell the people who actually wanted to use one, heck, they could just have it. Right? They could borrow it. And they're like, you're just going to give that to me? I'm like, I spent thousands for this. Or I spent, you know, this is a cheaper unit now, right? We all know they used to be more expensive, but we spent all that money. Nobody used it. The other thing that we realized was that nobody used DVDs or VCRs, right? Thank God, but no one used them. And so we also got rid of that equipment. And this is weird, right? Because we're basically going back to really just being a computer and a projector. Right? That's all it was, a computer and projector. But we did notice something odd, right? In 2013, and actually going before that, we used to use something from InFocus called Light Show. Has anybody ever heard of that? Anyone ever heard of that? So that was a technology in the early 2010s that we played with. And it was an ability to remotely show your computer, to wirelessly present your computer to that screen, that projector. It was before its time. I can talk about lots of technologies that we tried, QR codes that were before its time. Now everybody knows what a QR code, but we tried it before its time. But in 2013, we put Apple TVs in all the classrooms. Apple TVs were great. We had iPads, we had touch devices and everything else that were coming there. And at first, Apple had this wonderful technology called AirPlay. If any of you actually tried it in 2013, you would know it sucked. I'm just being really fair. It really sucked, right? For quite a few revisions, it was not good. It would randomly drop. But here's the thing. We knew then that if Apple was doing it and they were pushing it, unless they abandoned the technology, of course, that happens all the time. Companies abandon technology. It's a totally different problem. But it got better. It got much, much better. And so when we were renovating our classrooms, we looked at the stats and we realized that after the computers in the classroom, they were using AirPlay. And they weren't just using a little bit of AirPlay, they were using AirPlay a lot. So I don't have the stats with me because I'm trying to keep my slides low, but basically AirPlay was 1/3 of our utilization in our classrooms. Wow, 1/3. And so we thought, what can we do to improve that? And how can we do it on a budget? Because if you're thinking about it already, Apple TV is 150 bucks, right? That's pretty cheap. That's pretty cheap on a budget. So we added Microsoft 4K wireless adapters. Now, before any of you get excited and start looking for these, let me tell you that, just as I mentioned a few minutes ago, companies abandoned technology. Microsoft decided it was no longer viable for them to make 4K wireless streaming adapters, which is a shame. They were $50. $50. The good news is we found out that Best Buys in North America would sell them to us from any store. We bought 160 of them from every Best Buy in North America for $50 a pop. And when I say we bought every single one of them, we bought every single one of Best Buy's supply. We had to use different credit cards because they were limiting our orders. It took us about a month and a half, but we got 160 from every state and probably every Best Buy. Not really every Best Buy, but we bought them from everywhere. And we added them to all of our classrooms. So for $50, we got 4K Miracast, right? Everyone, if you're not familiar with that, that is the wireless streaming for your Windows devices. And so we now had this great thing where we had AirPlay and Miracast in every single space. And when I say every single space, I mean every single space. We also got lucky. Look, I'm going to be honest. All of our classrooms are not on a budget. I've listened to I've seen some other talks this time where people are like, we did this classroom, we got upgraded automatic camera switching, automatic tracking. We have rooms like that. Of course we have rooms like that. The neat thing about it is we use Cisco units. Cisco recently, and I say recently, last couple of months, added Miracast and AirPlay to their units as well. So all of our rooms, including our Cisco Kodak rooms, have the ability to go in and wirelessly present from your Apple or your Windows device. Guess what? We put this in last year. Our numbers are skewing more. Like I said, we were 1/3 before usage. We're now getting close to half. Half of our usage comes from wireless presentation, right? Wow, right? And why? Because they want to bring in their laptop that's got their software, that's configured the way they want to use it, and they want to do that. So what's this last device that's on the screen? We realized Microsoft has abandoned the technology. We're hoping that we get another 4 or 5 years out of that. But one device that we're looking at to replace it that's still budget-oriented is this thing called AirServer Connect 2. I don't know how much longer this is going to be available, not because the company is abandoning it, but because they've come out with a new model called the AirServer Connect 3. This device is currently about $500. It supports built-in Chromecast, Miracast, AirPlay, everything else. It's really nice. It's $500. Yes, it's $300 more than we paid for our current installation, right? But it's still kind of a budget-oriented device. Now, mind you, if I need to buy 200 of them, that $300 is going to hurt. So I'm hoping to stay with my $200 solution for as long as possible. All right, so that's one building block, right? Because we realize people want wireless presentation. That makes Zoom rooms and everything else difficult, right? How do you capture that data? Don't worry, I've got a budget solution for that. Next thing you're looking at is, say cheese, right? We want to take your photo. Now, there are some really cool auto tracking cameras. There are some very cool integrations with audio to do all that type of thing. Mind you, I've got over 100 rooms. I need to be a little bit more budget oriented. So I buy some cameras from Axis, right? These cost less than $1,000. That N3086 is $300, give or take, with the educational discount. I'm not spending $2,000, $1,500, $3,000 for those auto tracking cameras because I can't afford it for every single room. I want technology that's the same. And let's be honest, the most important thing in the rooms is audio. It's not video. If you think it's video and a close-up of the person, I got news for you. It's not, right? And I got some slides where I'm going to prove that to you in a second, right? Audio is key, though. Audio and content are key. They don't care about whether they can see you and where you're walking. They really don't. It's nice to have. I'm not knocking it by any means. But if they can't hear you, and by the way, all the nice auto tracking systems have great audio, so it's not really a problem. I'm not trying to imply that it is. Audio is more important. And so we've got these cameras. What do we do for audio? How do we do audio on a budget? With acoustic magic microphones. Why? Because they're budget oriented, right? Again, if you've got 2 or 3 rooms you're doing, by all means, buy the Nariva, buy the Shore, buy whatever. But you're going to spend, quite honestly, thousands of dollars on that solution, right? I think the Nariva 2 system is $8,000, $7,000. These Acoustic Magics, this Voice Tracker 1 costs $300, right? And on their website, like if you want to add more, just Y them, right? Plug in a Y cable and plug multiple units in. It's actually pretty nice. You might notice I skipped the Voice Tracker 2. They don't make it anymore, which is kind of a shame because the Voice Tracker 2 provided location data via USB. So you could hook it up to a tracker camera and get that capability on a $300 microphone. Voice Tracker 3, though, costs a little bit more. But again, these are really affordable microphone systems. Again, think about from terms of scale. I've got a lot of rooms. Seminar rooms are a great example, where it's like 15 or 20 people. I don't need a $2,000 audio system, a $3,000 audio system in there. I got a $300 system. It works great. It gives me that. Do you have a question or just? So again, they've got some great demo videos and some demo placement things. So it really depends on the classroom. So some of them we've got facing, like depending on the size of the room, we might put it all the way in the back, right? We might put it in the front. It really depends on the size of the room, but they've got some great literature that explains like how to set it up. Like if I was going to put one in this room, their recommendation would be like put it right here facing out because it's going to pick up me just fine behind it. But by pointing out like that, it's going to get all of you, right? So I would bet that based on the size of the rooms we put this in, if I put 2 of these in this room for $600, I'd capture every single one of yours voice for $600. Now, would I do that in the courtroom? No, I wouldn't do that. I'm being honest, right? Let's be honest here. But I've got some really large, like think college lecture hall rooms, cinder block, right? It doesn't look so great. It's getting this system is going to work just fine. Now, I mentioned before that we've evolved, right? We've got this enhanced technology. And I'm hoping I can see the time. If I start to go like late, just yell at me, right? And so how do we capture content? Because content is key, right? If somebody's wirelessly on their iPad and they're teaching a class, and I want to capture that content because I want to share it with people that are remote, or I want to record it, or I want to do anything like that, I don't want to worry about having them have to join the Zoom session on their iPad because I'm going to get feedback. It's not going to be a great experience. I want something that just works. How do we solve that problem? With a really cool budget content encoder, right? This is under $200 educational price for us. That's what we paid. And basically, it's a network-based encoder. So we get one of these plugged everywhere with a HDMI loop through. So one of these is sitting in between all outputs before it shows on the screen. There's a problem with that, and it's a projector problem, which is that some projectors support freeze. Anybody familiar with that technology? Where the projector itself will freeze what's on the screen. There's some professors who do that. The downside is if they freeze something and they start doing something on the computer, the encoder gets whatever they're doing on the computer that's going out. And so we're debating on removing that freeze feature. But it's pretty cool. We put this in every single room. It's in every single room. And we can capture whatever is shown on the screen. So whether you're doing that USB plug-in document camera, whether you're doing your iPad, whether you're doing your laptop, whatever, we capture it. No big deal, no special hardware, no special encoder. A lot of like lecture capture systems will say, buy an encoder card for your desktop classroom, or put our specialized appliance in your room and you'll capture your content. That's not budget oriented for us. There's no way we can afford that in all of our classrooms. And so to that point, it's really not just the initial purchasing. It's your replacement, right? I sadly, and I'm sure some of you do as well, I have rooms that were bought as part of projects, bought as part of renovations, bought for whatever reason. We ended up ripping all of that technology out. We got rid of it all because it wasn't used, right? It was a waste of money. It would have been a bigger waste to double down and replace it. And so we moved to a simpler setup. It's easier to support, easier to replace, easier to maintain. And what does that really mean? Let's talk about some costs. So I've got projector, TV, whatever. I put 1K to 5K, but let's be honest, you could spend whatever you want. You could buy a $500, heck, you could buy a $300 60-inch TV and put it in a room, and that would be a great display. And if it broke from a budget perspective, no big deal, you just go buy another one, right? The Extron control equipment, that's kind of all over the price, right? You can spend whatever you want. Extron has a really neat thing, though, where they now sell a control unit that you can buy one of. You can put somewhere. It's a couple $1,000s. And then you can buy your $500 push-button control unit, put that in a room, and it talks to this control unit. And then that control unit sends, either has dongles if it's legacy equipment or direct IP stuff and everything else. And so you can really scale quite nicely for a little bit of money. As I mentioned before, cameras were under $1,000, the microphone, $300, the content encoder was $200. I talked about wireless presentation for $200, or heck, if you got to spend more and do $500. And all-in-one computer, right? Our current spec is $850. Now you might say, well, why do I have 800 there? We're going to move to touch displays in all of our classrooms because we know people like touch. Right? We're seeing that. So we're going to spend a little bit more and do that. And then my personal favorite is speakers, $50. Why is that? Well, in some rooms, I've got a projector that has speakers. They kind of suck. The TV speakers, though, not so bad, right? I'm willing to do that. We've got some rooms where we basically have the $50 computer sound system that's hooked up on them. And then, of course, it goes up from there. What I'm trying to point out is you can do something really nice on a pretty nice budget. So now what? What do? We've got the stuff. We want to put it all together. We want to see what we can do in terms of how can we bring this to an enhanced classroom that essentially delivers the computer and the projector, but yet makes it really nice and easy to do. How do you do that? You have to integrate everything. You got to get that square peg to fit in the round hole. How do you do that? Right? That's the important thing, because not everyone can do that, right? Not everyone can be like, I can figure that out. I can write code. And so you got to look at your costs of integration, right? And so your costs of integration are obviously, do you build it or do you buy it? And we all have that conversation a lot, right? We all know that sometimes buying it is better. Sometimes building it is better. I look at it and say, it's really up to you. So let's talk about some examples of ways we do different things here. So we use Access Streaming Assistant. I told you we use the Access cameras. We use Access Streaming Assistant. The really nice thing about Access Streaming Assistant is you can pull in whatever views you want and add them as different cameras that become available on that system. The end result is that when you're in Zoom, those become selectable as cameras. It's not auto selection, but again, now you might say, well, auto selection, that's not great. What if a student is there? And a student wants to be seen or a student wants to be heard. If the camera doesn't auto-select, you'll miss that. And that's where I kind of say, but let's be honest, not really. And how do we know that? Because when we look at review sessions, the students have their cameras off. They don't turn their cameras on. They just don't, right? Here's a review session, zooming from a classroom. This is on a recording. We'll talk about this in a second. But you can see up top, there's 2 students who couldn't make it. And so, hybrid, I know some schools talk about how hybrid is no longer, it's kind of frowned upon, looked down upon, everything else. But the reality is the cat's out of the bag a little bit. People are going to want to use it. So when someone's in a classroom, no matter what classroom they're in, they want to be able to have that hybrid experience if they need it. It's just funny that when the students join hybrid, they don't turn on their camera. So why do I need that? They're just not turning it on. And if you're being honest with yourself, saying you've taught a remote class, you might find that this is true, right? This kind of rings home a little bit with you. So great, we've got Zoom integration. That's great. What else do we have? We have something called Root Camps. I presented on this in 2006. This is software that I wrote, right? And when you talk about build it or buy it, if someone said 18 years ago, should we use this software? Guess what? We've been using it for 18 years. It works really cool, right? We have 47,000 videos in our current collection. We've done over 100,000 recordings since 2006. Most of them have been in the last 5 years, right? Our usage is off the charts, right? Some other things that's here, one-click recording for all classes. When I say one-click recording, professors, any professor from any school logs into our systems, clicks one button, record all my classes. That's it. They're done. All their classes are recorded automatically. They don't have to do anything else. The other thing that RootCamp supports is multi-angle live streaming, which is a really cool trick. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But anyway, yes, did this in 2006. I could spend an hour just talking about half of what our system does, which is pretty cool. Capturing content, though, that was the next thing, right? So you can see on the screen, there's our little thing. And we've got, I got some screenshots of what it looks like for the Apple TV AirPlay interface, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, as well as a screenshot of what the Microsoft Miracast device says. You might not be able to see it, but it says connect by pressing Windows K, right? And this is our older rollout. We've now got pictures that you can update. We tried doing pictures on the Apple TV, but Apple in its infinite wisdom likes to automatically log you out once in a while of your account, reset the screens, everything else. So we don't really use that. We just take the Apple default. But on the Microsoft, they got a really nice setup interface, and we can do that. I mentioned VLC Media Player because what we did in our classrooms is we designed the all-in-one that I talked about as sort of the hub. And so the hub computer has a special batch file, a script that we wrote that can call and say, show me the content of the screen for that room. So if I'm in this classroom and I'm Zooming, when I go here and I want to share the screen, I can just select the app that says show classroom screen. It's basically VLC, and that will show whatever is on the encoder. And I can put that right into the Zoom. And we have faculty doing it by themselves, and they just put that data right in there. Well, what does it look like? Looks like this in a recording. Here's a professor using his iPad. You probably can't tell. He's looking at it right here on the screen. Classroom computer is not even on, so he's not Zooming this, right? He's just presenting from his iPad, and you can see how we capture it. And it's pretty nice, right? To be able to say, we've got that captured. And some things you can't see because it's not up on the screen here, but we use something called VOSC for closed captioning. So we're doing, so we have automated captions of our videos, and we've got all that. And that's great. It's a proprietary solution. People are like, I'm scared of proprietary solution. But guess what? We integrate really nice with Canvas. So we have an LTI that we wrote for Canvas that integrates all of our recordings right in there through a class recordings link. So if you're a professor, and everybody uses Canvas, that's what we use at Rutgers, you have a beautiful LTI integration that will take all of your recordings, including your content, and throw them right in there. And if I go back and you look here, you can see at the top, we've got different tabs for what angle that you want to see. Whether you want to just look at the main, whether you want to look at content, whether you want to look at picture in picture. And oh, by the way, if you're in our courtroom that has 5 cameras, when you're playing that video back, the person playing that video back can switch between any of the views as they're playing it back and see what view they want, right? Capture that and see that. If we're live streaming, all of those views become available in the live stream as well. And so they can select between any of the views that they want. And if we're in tracking mode, we can push what view we want everyone watching live to see, and it will switch people's remote viewer automatically to that view. So we got a lot of neat things, but that's cool, right? But hey, we don't want to build it. We want to buy it. We've got Kaltura integration. So we integrate seamlessly with Kaltura, both for live streaming and for injecting our content. Here's where we found that Kaltura is not as nice as we are. They only support 2 angles. So we only push the main and content to Kaltura. They have no concept of doing additional angles. But wait, that's not all. You can also use OBS. Anyone familiar with OBS, right? Great product, free. You can plug in all of our views. In fact, I did this setup from my home. It's running on my home computer. So you can set up and pull in all those different views, pull in that content, pull in whatever you want, and you're going to see all of that and be able to do that remote stuff if you want. So the budget solution gives you that automated, hey, I just go in the room and it works, but it also allows us to do some really neat tricks with everything else. Now, I know I got only a few minutes left, but I want to do a couple things to show you. We have some large classrooms, very large classrooms, larger than this. And I mentioned that we only have these kind of dome cameras that point out. We don't have the auto tracking cameras. But all of the cameras now support edge-based analytics, edge-based motion detection, edge-based actions. And so here is this great example, and I'm going to see if this works, of the, so if I'm here and I'm watching this room, let me just go ahead here. So this person, the professor, they're walking into the room. and they walk across the center of the room. Camera automatically tracks them and shows them right.
Test, check 1, 2, and then
And you
podium.
audio, right? So it's all working good. So what I wanted to show there was that you can do some neat stuff automatically with auto tracking. And so we've got that turned on in our larger classrooms. So you can get that close in feel if you want without having to pay for anything else. It's built right into the system. Next thing, I'm not going to show this video because I'm basically out of time, but this is a great example. It's a small classroom. This is not a law classroom. And essentially what this professor is doing is he's got all of these students who have their laptops and they all take turns wirelessly projecting up to the screen from their seat. None of them get up, none of them plug into anything. They just do it from their seat and we capture all of that. So we could Zoom from that room and have people remote presenting and watching everyone wirelessly presenting from their seat, or we do the recording and you can switch between the default views that we have available in that space. So again, pretty neat technology on a, as you could see, I think an impressive budget. What else, right? What else can we do with this stuff? I think I've already I hope I've wowed you a little bit, talked a little bit about enhanced classroom technology and the things that are available. But what else can you do? Well, we're moving to Surfaces, laptops for all of our users. One of the reasons we're going to give them that is quite honestly, because our Dells that we've recently bought have been horrible, right? And it's not just in the last 6 months. I would say the last 4 years of Dell computers looked like they were all built on a Monday or a Friday. What's the joke that they always say, right? They are horrible. They are failing out the wazoo. The Surfaces that we've had great experiences with, and they also have touch capability. Right. So as I mentioned before, we're moving to touch-based all-in-ones in the classrooms. We're moving to touch-based in the giving people, our full-time people will have that. The other thing I wanted to show is we have digital signage outside all of our rooms. In 2010, we hosted Cali. We had digital signage outside all of our law school classrooms. We now have digital signage outside of every space. So when I said before that we put technology everywhere that's the same, I meant it. We have the same technology every room. So if you're a professor, if you're someone and you want to go use that space, you don't have to worry. That same tech is there for everyone. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention that in 2022, I did a 15-minute Cali presentation of virtual microphones. So we still maintain and we still have that technology. If any of you came and saw that, I was probably a little hyper about that. I wrote that in 5 weeks. I think it's really trick. It's a cool thing. So I hope that as we wrap up, I have a question slide, but I'm going to hop right over to my co-presenters for their half hour. I'll take questions at the end to give them a chance to go. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I hope you understood that there is something you could do for a budget out of that, and I hope you all had fun. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
We got some differences of opinions.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to stand still. It's going to be hard for me. I wander around a lot. So Alan and I both started at UF Law 6 years ago. So I was previously at the University of Texas and joined Florida as the Associate Dean for Legal Information. And for my first 2 years, I was not involved with IT.
So hello, my name is Alan Brown. Got this on here. And so I came from working from a global engineering firm and joined UFIT's technology services team as an IT supervisor. And so one question I kind of wanted to have is, has anybody here worked for a private sector and then came into the public sector? And okay, so there's big differences, big challenges that working, 18+ years in the private sector and rolling into the public sector, it was a big change. So we were basically involved in a contract, which is called an MOU, and which landed me in the law school. So it was quite different coming from that.
And so 4 years ago, someone left and I became the new liaison to UFIT. And Alan will talk a little bit more. So our IT at the law school is actually part of Maine University's IT. They are working for us under a memorandum of understanding that outlines what they do and don't provide at the College of Law. So when I took it over, the person leaving was like, oh, don't worry. Being the IT liaison won't take up hardly any of your time. And that was a lie. But on the other hand, it's been a really positive experience. Over these 4 years, the IT team has done really amazing work. We talked yesterday about some of the technology they've put in our faculty lounge and are putting in classrooms. We're going to talk a little bit more today about some of the power apps that they've created to solve law school specific issues. But these accomplishments just didn't happen. Alan and I have worked really, really hard over these past 4 years to create a really supportive environment that encourages creativity with the IT team and rewarding that creativity. And we've worked really hard on building our relationship too. So we meet at least once a week, most weeks for the past 4 years. I've learned, like, I am not a naturally techie person. I am a user of their services also, but I've learned so much about what they do and how they can contribute to our institution. And that has allowed me to really be in a position to advocate in the law school for our IT team, but also back to UFIT to tell them what our team is doing on the ground every day that they don't see.
Yeah, so balancing between being a UFIT person and being embedded in the College of Law, it's challenging to meet two different demands, right? And, coming from the broader UFIT, they really don't understand what goes on in the College of Law. So basically, we have to work diligently with both the law school and understand what they have, and then try to take that back to my leadership within UFIT as well, so that they have a good grasp of what's going on. So both could be a positive situation for both of them. So we're here to talk a little bit about challenges and benefits and collaboration with IT, and we got some tips for navigating those relationships.
So one of the challenges that we've kind of already mentioned is that UFIT, they don't really work with colleges. They mostly support administrative units throughout campus. We are the only college that they work with. And as colleges go, law schools tend to be even more unique places. So we have challenges that I think are particularly unique. So I suspect every law school has faculty members who are challenging for IT to deal with, whether because their age, lack of expertise, or they're just simply challenging individuals. And I think there was definitely a learning curve for the IT team when they came in to understand the type of teaching that goes on at the law school, the personalities at the law school, the variety of tech skills from our faculty members who really struggle with anything to the faculty member who is trying to convince me that our ideal setup in every classroom, which should have 4 monitors, which I was like, dude, you're the only one who can possibly do that. So, so really understanding the needs of the law school, and also explaining to IT the expectations of the law school leadership, which I'm part of.
Yeah, so it's interesting. We're talking about, hybrid, and I've been hearing some different things about hybrid, people not using hybrid. Law school has a very need for hybrid, and I talked about this yesterday in our other session, but we are the only college on UF campus that really has a robust hybrid environment. And and building that hybrid environment, and also we need to build a classroom where faculty can, walk in and not be able to have to do really much of anything, kind of like you were showing, Tom, where they can just walk in and tracking system catches them. They just basically come in, hit the the touch panel and go right to their presentations, or if they're free forming, that kind of thing. But we want to make it as easy as possible. And not only just that, we also handle a lot of high profile events. So we do tons of hybrid conferences. We do live stream mayoral debates. We just had a university board of trustees that was showcased, or they came into the College of Law last night, which went very well. A lot of high flex people online at Zoom that can't be there. So that helps tremendously when you're dealing with the board of trustees. And then we do a lot of training, CLE stuff, where we're dealing with a lot of advanced trial advocacy, prosecutors, public trial stuff. So we're very involved. And again, these are hybrid events. So, and there's really no other team that we can kind of go back and talk to within the UFIT greater community, because we are kind of the cutting edge and the leading edge of that. So.
And another unique need that some of the law faculty have is that they want to use different software, and UFIT has a very rigorous risk assessment process. So even the standard databases that the library subscribes to, like Westlaw, Lexis, Bloomberg, Hein, have to go through risk assessment every 3 years. And each new risk assessment is reviewed for security, privacy, alignment with the university's technology goals, and it includes multiple units. So you've got the Information Security Office, Privacy Office, Office of General Counsel, and Procurement Services as part of this. And if it's determined that a software needs to go through full risk assessment, that process, they say, may take between 2 and 12 weeks. I've never seen it take 2 weeks. So that generally isn't the news a faculty member wants to hear when they want to use a new piece of software. I mean, I couldn't get the Lexis add-on added onto my computer easily. I mean, so part of what I end up doing then is mediating that process with the faculty member to kind of explain to them the importance of the risk assessment process. And then Alan does his part to try and help speed that process along through the UFIT risk assessment.
Yeah, so we've been lucky to support, we've been well supported by the College of Law. We collaborate a lot, which is a big thing. Collaboration, you just have to do it. It justifies and any development of new projects that we do. So we prioritize projects each year, considering funding and everything of that nature. It's all about planning, and you have to really plan, because in an example, what we did this year, we're upgrading all of our Crestron recorders. So, we were able to work together and look at what we can take from this fiscal year to the next fiscal year. So basically we have roughly 22 classrooms, and we have recorders in every one of those classrooms. So we're able to cut that in half and use our budget in that. So it's key to be able to talk to one another, to be able to collaborate, just within the College of Law, to be able to make these to be able to fund it and do it the right way. So we've accomplished a lot of good upgrades this way, and it's becoming more and more apparent that this is what we need to do in order to make it work.
Yeah, and so I think part of the reason the law school has been really supportive financially of some of the IT goals is because it is part of that ongoing conversation. As Alan said, like, we knew we had a big expense and our fiscal year ends on the 30th of June. So how much money can we use this year? How much money can we use next year? So we manage by the start of school, everything will be upgraded, ordered 10 this on 24, 12 on 25, and then we'll be good. So, but again, it's that communication, and Alan has a really good sense then of what the priorities of the law school are. And he and his team think really deeply about how they can support those priorities and the pain points in the law school. And so, I mean, I think the thing that will keep resonating throughout this entire conversation is the communication. And really there's work to do on both sides from the law school and the IT perspective. So I'm pretty comfortable with what I know and what I don't know. And there's a lot about technology I don't know. So I often feel like I serve as kind of a translator. I ask Alan a lot of questions so that I can go in and explain things to the dean in language that she will understand. But then I'm also explaining a lot about what's going on in the law school to Alan and his team, so they are kind of aware of, you know, the upcoming, anything from upcoming big events to challenges that we're going to be facing to what our budget's going to look like, so that it really is a continual process.
Yeah, it's been a multi-year journey just getting to this point, and it requires commitment and time, which is a big thing, and patience, which I've heard a lot of people talk about. Communication between your networking team and things like that. So, going back from both sides, and Jane, as she mentioned, has a lot of questions for me, and then I take that back to my team, through across UFIT to my leadership, and then we kind of discuss those things, but. And then we bring it back and we look at, the broader goals of the law school and try to fit that in. So the law school has been great about providing feedback, which is a big thing. Feedback in any situation is going to help you, right? And then to take that back to your UFIT leadership and explain that to them. So you really need to have a good understanding of what's going on with the school. So earlier this year we demonstrated a new Power App to the law school leadership team. And by the way, UFIT they don't really use a lot of Power Apps. So this is a big thing we started getting involved in. And the leadership team was, basically got a round of applause for the presentation that my colleague put together. So, we're all working towards the same goals, and we're all contributing to a broader mission of the college. And that's very key.
So there are obvious challenges in the arrangement we have, but there are also then a lot of benefits. So one of them is obviously enhanced security and compliance. As I mentioned, the risk assessment process can be pretty onerous, and our IT team helps shepherd our assessments through that process. Alan is the technical advisor on all of our risk assessments, and he really does help us navigate the process through the university to ensure that we can use the new technology, but it's also complying with security issues with main UFIT.
So a lot of things go on behind the scenes, as you all know, when we're doing upgrades and security things of that nature, and so it's you got to work closely with other IT teams across campus, such as we work with the workspace management team, deploying patches to all the computer systems, working with ICT to maintain the security of the network, and then trying to hopefully they'll tell us when changes are going to happen that could basically hinder us when it comes to our audio, which or anything in our classrooms. So that's very key. So working with the infrastructure teams and the group that Jane mentioned, the risk team, these are all groups that vets the software and the hardware in our environment. So which leads me to another benefit, access to technology resources. So the IT teams, basically our IT teams plugged into a larger IT environment on campus. We serve as a bridge between the law school and other IT resources. It basically strengthens our IT ecosystem with our institution, both in law and within UFIT. It basically enhances the law school's capacity to fill its missions, achieve its goals, and it also to adapt to evolving technology landscape. So some key benefits include resource sharing, access to specialized expertise, and then improved service delivery. So, when I talk about resource sharing, think about all the software licenses, the databases, what can the infrastructure that UFIT, Greater UFIT provides you, to help optimize resources allocated across the campus, which leads to cost savings and increased efficiency for the college that you support. Access specialized, expertise, leveraging IT professionals from various departments is key as well. I mean, I've learned a lot about trying to leverage in the past 6 years, and that's a big thing you have to really focus on. And especially when you're dealing with specialized, access specialized expertise, those kind of people, you really need to be leveraging and using them so that you're not really, they understand it and you don't. So improved service delivery, collaborating ensures that law school benefits from a robust infrastructure. It has reliable support services and comprehensive security measures, which they all put together for us. So in addition to the tech stuff, so basically these three categories are huge when it comes to this connection and this, I guess, marriage that we have together.
So one of the areas in which the law school's IT team has really shown is developing solutions to our problems. They've been incredible working to improve hybrid classroom and the remote event experience at the law school. And they've also worked to implement upgraded ceiling mic systems, the auto switching, auto tracking we've talked about, but they've also developed a number of custom solutions using Microsoft's Power Apps for some real law school pain points.
Yeah. So one of our focuses supporting law schools identify areas where we can improve not just the learning and teaching experience, but also improve processes and procedures. So we developed several Power Apps that include onboarding, offboarding, what we call a fund request form, and then some clinics. We have clinics, so there's some timesheets that folks are using Excel and things of that of that nature. Onboarding, offboarding was kind of a wreck when we first got there. This tool has really helped us tremendously across all different departments. And then the fund request form was actually being used by a personal Google account, so that's just kind of not really good. So it was, key for us to look at an inventory as well. I know inventory is a big thing when it comes to technology and making sure your all of your assets are in order. This Power App that we put together has really helped that for the law school as well back into UFIT and their asset management system. So, and utilizing our Microsoft shared services, we leverage the Power Apps, right? And it helps aid the law school in implementing tools and assisting without having to go look at outside vendors, and then again, reduces the cost and license. So, that's a key thing for us as well there.
So after 4 years of us working together, what have we learned? So this is one of the recurring themes, which is about clear communication channels. It sounds really basic, but it's the foundation of our successful working relationship. We meet regularly. The relationship between UFIT and the College of Law is governed by this Memorandum of Understanding that outlines what IT does and doesn't do, which comes in really helpful if faculty members come up with really strange things. It's something we revisit every year, and actually the services that IT has provided has expanded every year during that contract, but it still defines our relationship. And again, I relay information back to the law school's leadership. Alan works with IT across campus to ensure that they're supporting the law school, just even down to things like if a faculty member has a complaint or a request that IT can't accommodate, Alan will loop me in. Sometimes I will give the dean a heads up of like, this person may be complaining and this is why we're saying no.
So, again, establishing an effective communication channels and with IT departments across campus has really helped us tremendously, as Jane has mentioned. And there's several, obviously several key components to achieve this, and determining key contacts with each IT department obviously starts with directors, system administrators, and network engineers, and other various, departments. And it is critical. It's crucial for these to have a successful outcome in order to do that. So this involves frequent interaction and dedicated resource where all parties are really on the same page. So this goes to building relationships, working with IT teams across campus on tasks, ranging from director to support specialist. I put a great deal of effort into developing these relationships, in order to be successful in your role, but not only for the College of Law, but for your role, you need to network and collaborate as much as possible. This also transcends back into college, you're supporting as well. And we all know that, creating lunch dates, happy hours, whatever that takes, that's what you have to do, right? And and even Zoom or Teams, whatever you're using, find something that you can continue to keep collaborating with. So, and you'll find in most cases that once you do this, these relationships will really be fulfillful. So, Jane has also been willing to go across campus with us to be able to see that technology or technology in other buildings. We have this building called Malachowski Hall that they just built. It's amazing technology. Jane's great about going over with us to get ideas and see that. So, and then these groups also see this happening. So they tend to be more collaborative and really want to help. So, basically it's again, her presence shows that law school is very invested in our team.
So it's also really important to have clear requirements and expectations. So when the IT team was redesigning our faculty lounge, we had the dean come up to the faculty lounge multiple times to join Alan, myself, the head of development, and other members of the IT team. So the dean could describe exactly what she wanted the technology in the room to do, like her vision for the room. And so then the team took that vision, researched options, went back to her again, and as it was kind of an iterative process of, this is what we're thinking about doing, and explained how that could be accomplished. So then she was more willing to support financially our solution. And then once the clear plan was in place, the installation of the new system was actually delayed due to supply chain issues, but we kept her informed about kind of what the process was looking like, where the delays were. We worked to determine an absolute must be ready to go deadline. So, you know, everybody is like, August 1, start of class. And it's like, when do we really have to have this ready? And we really had to have it ready for the first faculty meeting of the year. And we met that deadline. So she was incredibly happy because we'd also kept her in the loop throughout the entire process. So it wasn't just come the first day of classes, we're like, yeah, stuff is on a boat somewhere. We don't know what's going on. So again, having that constant communication, no one likes surprises. And so managing expectations throughout projects is really important.
Yeah, as Jane mentioned, you know, staying informed and having a clear expectation are super crucial, you know, and especially when having to work through multiple support groups. And, you know, in these types of scenarios, it's key to have what I call a solid change control. And it's one thing that I don't see within US is a change control process that, you know, we're trying to implement to create that, you know, everybody's cohesive, they know what's going on. I mean, this helps groups be informed. It allows me to provide the law school with the necessary changes being implemented, from whether it's from infrastructure to security. You know, staying informed about technology changes, you know, this is another big thing. And I'm not going to talk a whole lot about this, but I think everybody should, you know, knows how to stay informed and what to do. And again, leverage your groups to be informed. You know, they're the ones that are the experts. They're the ones that go out and really, or well, they should be going out and, you know, researching whatever product or things that you're using. So, you know, again, it's something that, you know, leverage these groups, stay informed and be in constant conversations with these folks.
And then I think expressing gratitude is really important. So IT, as you all know, is one of those areas that when everything's running well, people don't really notice the hard work that goes into it. Faculty might remember the one day that something goes wrong with classroom technology and not all the other days that it goes right. And if they never have a problem, they're like, it's easy. That's why I've never had a problem. Both our former dean and our new interim dean have been wonderful about thanking members of the IT team at the end of events for their work in making the event run smoothly. It's an acknowledgement of the work that is generally invisible because there isn't an issue. Alan mentioned that his team member who developed the new fund request power app, we had Alan and Albert come in and do a demo of the power app while it was still in development. And the leadership team of the law school was blown away by what he'd done. And at the end of his presentation, he got a spontaneous round of applause from the leadership team. And Albert's usually he's like a super low-key dude, but I could tell like he just definitely had that, like he was so pleased and really proud of what he'd done and the acknowledgement that he was getting from the leadership of the law school. So, you know, at the end of the day, everybody wants their contributions to be acknowledged and recognized and feel like their contributions are part of a bigger mission. And then also, I buy lots of pizza and pastry because, like, who doesn't like snacks?
So, you know, working between two groups has its challenges, but the law school has done an amazing job, as you know, Jane said, and that says a lot, right? Because, you know, that empowers people. When people see that, they see the, you know, that you're producing for the law school, you're doing, power apps and things like that. It just makes people feel a lot better about the work that they do. They're going to be a lot more dedicated. So, it has its challenges, but as long as the college and whoever you're in, you feel dedicated, you feel appreciated, people are going to continue to come to work and they're going to do great things.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, having a successful relationship with IT, both at the law school and across campus, requires a lot of communication and mutual respect. And while it can be time consuming, as I said, the person who told me this won't take up much of your time, it was a lie, but it's really been worth the time and energy I put into it, because the work of our IT team has surpassed anything that the law school would have ever expected when Alan joined 6 years ago.
So with that said, does anybody have any questions? Yes. Just going to bring a mic up to you.
Oh, thanks.
I work for Xtegrity now, but until 9 months ago, I was in charge of IT at the Brandeis School of Law at the University of Louisville for 25 years. And especially around exam time, I've got to ask, what does student support look like in this environment? Because
So that's a great
you didn't
question.
really mention it, and
Yeah.
I'm sure a few of my colleagues would agree that those kids can be needy.
But they can. So that's a great question. When we first came in, we had to kind of observe what was going on. So we exams, tough exam soft, a lot of students don't, they'll wait to the last minute. So we table weeks earlier. We go out, we send a communication out for exams. So, communication, again, we talk about that, getting it out, how are you going to, communication is a big thing. Are students looking at their emails? Probably not. Are you putting it out on your signage and things of that nature? Tabling is very key, we found out, because it's in your face. So when you put a table out in front of the students all walking around, it says, hey, do you need help, for exam soft, and things of that nature, they gravitate to us immediately. So we're still working to try to find better ways to communicate with the students to get them prepared. One way is they do a lot of quizzes and things of that nature to get prepared. So we also send out a questionnaire to them as well, where they can go out and do basically look and do steps to see, is your machine ready? Do you have the right software? Do you have the correct machine to use? Things like that. So we're still continuing to do, we want to do better for them, but that's one of the key things that communication, we felt that, communication is a tough one. So you have to get in their face kind of thing with that. So.
Yeah, so there's basically a physical help desk in the library that students can go to throughout really any time when we're staffed. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 is when they can get service at that point. And we've done tabling in the library because that's where IT is physically located. But then one of the things we started doing is doing tabling actually in the commons, which is where the Starbucks is, and everybody's in there. So that had a lot of uptake with the students who might not be the library users, but everybody needs caffeine. So that was really successful.
I'm going to go next here. So great presentation. And I couldn't agree with you more when it comes to cross-pollination across the university and building those relationships and trust and appreciation. So the nicer you are and the more interaction you have with those folks, the lot easier it is to get service. People are going to remember that. Oh yeah, I helped out Eddie and he was so appreciative. I'm going to help him out next time. But I want to also reflect, we were talking about change management, change control. One of the things that's really helped us across Arizona State is the use of Slack, and having different channels for different things, right? And so it's an amazing tool, not just at the law school, but across different spectrums of the IT chain, right? So that's something I think would help in your cases, being kind of siloed off and having that information come into those Slack channels. So just keep that in mind.
Good point. Excellent point.
And I love Teams, so we have lots of communication that way too.
Yeah, we're a strong teams. We do a lot of teams. We're trying to still push that across our campus, but within our IT team, that's our lifeline. Teams is everything. So.
Anybody else? Okay, we're a little
Or
over
for Tom.
time, so any other questions? If we could take them offline. Thanks, guys.
You want me to stop sharing or?